Yeah, so today's engagement, we'll be looking at food processing and food processing methods because soon we will be looking at product development. So it will be very vital for us to look at this before we start to dig deeper into product development and what it entails. But this being part of it, then we will go for it straight away. Under this presentation, we'll be looking at food processing methods. We'll be looking at nutritional considerations, packaging, or safety and quality. Then we'll also be looking at sensory evaluation and quality control. To start with, we will define food processing, and we are saying that these processing methods are crucial in transforming raw ingredients into safe and enjoyable products. For example, every small thing you do to a particular food, as we will be seeing, turning it into something different. Okay, and when we talk of raw materials, we are not talking of things that are not edible or things that cannot be consumed over there. Something edible can also still act as a raw material for a product that you desire out of it. For example, we'll take milk as an example. Milk is a raw material for yogurt, right? Milk is a raw material for ghee. It is the final product that we desire out of that makes it a raw material, right? So in terms of raw materials, we are not talking about things that cannot be able consumed or things that need a lot of work or a lot of processing to turn into fine products. It could also be that fine product, but then it is a raw material for the end product that you desire at the end of the day. We are also going to be looking at ensuring safety and quality in this food processing. How do you ensure that even during this processing stage of the food, you're ensuring that the quality is not lost and also it is safe for consumption with the end user. The end user being the consumer or the customer who is going to purchase your final product. All right. So we'll also be looking at the types of food processing here. We'll be looking at the mechanical processing. We'll be looking at thermal processing and also the preservation techniques. Preservation techniques will come in here in the types of processing because also sometimes the preservation technique could also give the food something extra or the product something extra, and that we will term as processing in its own, because now the food or the product you're working on has changed because you have preserved it in a certain way, and the qualities it picks out of preserving it in that certain way will alter maybe its properties or something like that. So we'll term that as also processing. Right, let's kick it. Let's start with mechanical processing. Mechanical processing, we will see that in this mechanical processing, we are looking at the usual things we do to the food or things that do not require changing the food entirely or totally. We'll be looking at things that we usually do commonly, which include the cutting, the chopping, and when we look at this, we are saying you're reducing food into smaller pieces for further processing, such as cooking. Okay. Yeah. So here, when you go and peel the matoke, when you go and peel the cassava, when you split yellow bananas, when you exerting any physical force, okay, physical force to that particular food, that is what we term as mechanical. And we will see that in this mechanical form of processing, we do not require complex machines. We do not require extra. It is more actually the easiest form of processing compared to other forms of processing. You don't need to pay extra caution. Okay, there is caution required. For example, you're not going to be cutting your fingers, etc. But then caution on the food that you're working on. You know what actually you want at the end of the day. Not very many things could go wrong with these mechanical processing methods. I would like to interest you to go and research some further on these methods, whereby you will see when to apply them and how they are being applied. Another form of mechanical processing, we look at grinding. Grinding, I know people who have been in villages we know the mortar and pestle that people use. Maybe you're grinding groundnuts. I don't know, sorghum. Do they grind sorghum? I'm not so sure. Yeah, but also the milling. Okay, we have these milling machines, but earlier on in the day, we never had those milling machines. We used to have these milling stones. Okay, they had stone surfaces whereby one stone is coming on top of the other, and that friction is helping us in reducing the particles. The major form of, in this mechanical processing, we are trying as much as possible to reduce the size of the particle or the size of the food in this process. So that grinding, that milling, the machines working on the rice, the machines working on the cassava, the machines turning paste, turning groundnuts into paste. It is all that milling is reducing solids into powders or pastes for various culinary applications. Culinary is cooking or food or something. So when you see something, a word like culinary, don't think it's an exotic word. Okay, it is a term for preparations of cooking, etc. Yeah. So also we have mixing and blending. Here we are combining different ingredients uniformly to create consistent textures. Really mixing, I know most of us who have tried to do some bakery, you have a lot of ingredients. You have the flour, you have the sugar, you have the butter, and you're trying to mix all of them together so that you come out with that final product. Sometimes we do this manually, whereby you get a mingling stick or a wooden spoon and start beating the mixture together using, maybe you're trying to incorporate air. I think you will do that in your cookery soon, whereby you're trying to put in air into the final mixture. And also with blending, you realize that in a blender we have that motor underneath at the very bottom, and then it has those blades that sit on top of the motor. So the role of these blades is to beat. In most cases, they are acting in that. I think it is more of a whipping kind of direction, whereby they're trying to cut the foods into simpler foods. For example, if someone is trying to make a smoothie, they'll maybe get the milk, then they get the banana. If it's a banana smoothie, then blend them all together at once to make that mixture. So ingredients could be different. For example, people who are now into juicing, you realize that people are trying as much as possible to lose weight through juicing. So blenders come in handy, and these blenders, in most cases, the people who use them, they are trying to blend herbs. I think it is more of herbs they blend. They blend herbs, they blend cucumber, they blend vegetables to make those smoothies that they then take. I don't know who ever advises them about them, but yeah, it always happens. And this is also part of the mechanical processing methods and very many more. All right, so let's shift gears and look at thermal processing. Okay, like the word thermal sounds, here we are introducing heat. Okay, you're introducing heat to a particular food and trying to change its appearance, trying to get that final product you desire. Okay, yeah. And the reason why we are applying this thermal processing, it is sometimes also used during the preservation bit, like we have said, these things work interchangeably, the processing and the preservation. So with thermal processing, we are looking at you exerting heat to the particular food stuff at the end of the day, so that you can maybe soften it, or maybe you can add color to it, make it edible, etc., according to the importance of the person creating the product. Okay, and these are very many. And also, like I said in the earlier slide of mechanical processing, there are still very many more methods of mechanical processing. For example, I've not put here beating, but then also it is also a form of processing whereby people get these hard meat cuts and beat them so that they become more tender, compared to adding chemicals to them to tenderize it. So all those are forms of processing, because now the meat becomes a little tender so that people can turn it into anything they want to turn it into. But back to thermal processing, where we are looking at cooking and we are saying applying heat to the food to make it safe to eat and also improve flavor. You realize that with cooking, or at least when heat is introduced, we tend to know that most germs uh, are not friendly with heat. Okay, yeah. So once these germs and bacteria die off because of excessive heat, but as we look at some germs in our food microbiology class that will start soon, we will see that there are some germs that cannot be destroyed by heat, however much you cook. They may become inactive, but then they cannot be destroyed by heat. And then we'll find which method would we be using to help us work on such bacteria, etc. Some bacteria can survive in that type of heat. So, however much you are trying to heat the food to make it safe to eat and also improve flavor, some people can argue that flavor is sometimes lost during cooking because excessive cooking will make some flavors escape in terms of steam, etc. And also, we'll see that with cooking, sometimes the more you cook a food, the more it disintegrates. Take for instance the fish. Once this fish will disintegrate if it's not cooked properly and it is cooked for a longer period of time, then however much it is safe to eat, but then the nutrients are not in that particular food. And also let's look at meat. When meat is cooked in high heat, it tends to harden. So when it hardens, we could say it is safe to eat, but then it is not safe to eat to people who are having dental problems. Okay, yeah. So a lot of explanations can be seen there. Then when we look at baking, we are looking at using dry heat to cook various foods like bread and pastries, etc., cookies, scones. Take for anything that you would like to bake. And it's not only that. In most cases, when we talk of baking, our minds rush to only which products, right? Yeah. But then we have baked rice, baked chicken. I've seen someone having baked potatoes, etc. Yeah. So let's not always focus our minds on only those wheat products. For example, if you're looking at baking, someone is going to look at bread, someone is going to look at scone, someone is going to look at pastries, someone is going to look at Swiss rolls, etc. Yet, other foods can also be baked. And we will be looking at in your cooking methods or dietetic cookery, you will be looking at all these processes and how they happen, whereby you're looking at this dry heat, the baking technique, how it happens, etc. Yeah, the dry heat moving all over the food that you're putting into the oven and how the heat is being transmitted to the particular food, whether convection, whether radiation or conduction. You will see that then. And also we are looking at frying, and frying we are looking at immersing food in hot oil to achieve a crispy texture and unique flavors. With frying, we have forms of frying. I think that's where we have the shallow frying and also the deep frying, where we are looking at shallow frying being that the food is not fully immersed into the cooking oil, and we know that the cooking oil has a high affinity for heat. Okay, yeah, that is why many people, when they get accidents from cooking oil, it is very fatal. So the heat that the cooking oil keeps helps us to cook this food. Okay, because after conducting the heat from the saucepan, the cooking oil is able to transmit this heat to the same food, also giving it a crispy texture and unique flavors from the cooking oil you're using. Okay, yeah, it depends on the cooking oil. Some cooking oil doesn't have a lot of flavors to give out, but then maybe vegetable oil, then there is palm oil, then there is olive oil, all types of oils, groundnut oil. I've had someone use it. Yeah. So in the frying, I will also be looking at what happens during this frying, maybe in dietetic cookery too. Right. Then after mechanical, we've looked at mechanical methods of processing. Then we looked at thermal. Now we will go to these preservation methods. This could also look at, could take a form of more of increasing shelf life of these particular products that we produce. However, when we do this preservation, these forms of preservation on these particular foodstuffs, then they also tend to change in properties, and then here we'll also term that as processing per se. Yeah, so one we will look at canning, and canning we are looking at sealing food in airtight containers to extend shelf life. By preventing microbial growth. Microbial growth is the growth of those microbes or microorganisms, be it fungi, be it bacteria, spores, etc. Yeah. So I think here, for example, we could have the canned meats, we could have canned fish, canned beans, and these can be used in areas whereby the food takes long to reach. For example, if we are going to give food aid to people in Yemen, people in Syria, people in those war-torn areas, right? Yeah. And we don't know for how long will the food be underway, how we will have these logistics to make the food reach the people who need it in time. Then we'll try and opt for this form of preservation. Okay, yeah. Canned foods sometimes could even take to 6 months or more in their cans. Yeah. So this will prevent the microbes from inside getting air, and you know that oxygen is very vital for microbial growth, like we'll see in food microbiology. So this preventing air from reaching the food or giving more optimum or giving an atmosphere for microbes to grow will extend the shelf life of the particular food. We also look at freezing. And freezing, we are looking at reducing temperatures to slow down enzymatic reactions and microbial growth. We'll see that also part of the requirements for enzyme activity is warmth. Okay, yeah. Under optimum temperatures, we'll see that different enzymes work differently. Okay, yeah. The properties, we could have pH, we could have surface area, then we have warmth as one. So with warmth, reducing the temperature to slow down enzymatic reaction is very key. Okay, when we put these foods under refrigeration, then the enzymes cannot carry out the reactions. Enzymatic reactions could lead to very many things. Yeah. Okay. They could distort the color of a particular foodstuff. They could distort the structure of a particular foodstuff. They could distort the taste of a particular foodstuff. So when we freeze these foods, reducing the temperature, then in the end, I will try as much as possible to preserve that particular food. Dehydration, removing moisture from the food to inhibit spoilage and reduce its weight. Yeah. For example, if we reduce the moisture from a particular food, then also microbial growth will be hindered in this particular way. Most of these we'll be looking at them in food microbiology. Our next module from this one. Okay, then safety measures in food processing. We are having pasteurization, and this is usually in milk. How we ensure safety when we are processing these particular foods. First of all, we want you to understand the particular food that you're processing. Okay, having knowledge of the characteristics or properties of the particular food you're processing will help you as much as possible when you're trying to come up with these safety measures on how you're going to handle the food you're processing. First, we'll look at pasteurization, and we are saying here heating liquids to kill harmful microorganisms. And we have seen this used on milk, etc. I think it was a method of preservation that was engineered or developed by Louis Pasteur. I think most of us have heard about that particular individual. Also, we are looking at sterilization, where we are looking at sterilization, eliminating all microorganisms and spores to create shelf-stable products. Okay, Yeah. You finish processing your particular food stuff, but then now you need to sterilize. In most cases, people tend to sterilize the containers where they're going to be putting these particular foods. And what I know, that locally sterilization is using hot water to wash the inner linings of that particular container. However, these days I think there are tools for sterilization. I'm forgetting the name of that particular equipment, whereby you put in whatever it is, and actually even in labs they have them. I think when I remember, I will give feedback. But it is sterilized using hot air. Okay, yeah, it is sterilized using hot air, and then when taken out of that sterilizer, let's use sterilizer for the name, but I'll give the name later. The container is now able to hold the particular product that you've created without having any safety concerns that could arise from the product being contaminated by the container where you're putting it in. Okay, then we're also having fermentation. Okay, fermentation using beneficial bacteria to preserve and enhance flavors. Well, this is we could use this in terms of processing. For example, we ferment yogurt, we ferment the beverages people take, the alcohol, etc. So the alcohol also that comes from fermentation can be used as a preservative. Okay, yeah, the acidic pH. The acidic pH prevents growth of some bacteria that are not friendly to acidic conditions, right? Yeah. So that's why you see even when we go for injections, when we go for these physical examinations, there is always sanitizer that is around because it has amounts of alcohol. And we believe that most germs and most microbes are not that friendly to alcohol. So this alcohol sometimes that is produced from these methods, or okay, let's call them acids because it's not always it is not always alcohol. But then we have maybe lactic acid that comes out as a byproduct during fermentation of milk. Then we have all other types of acids that could come. But then let's concentrate more on alcohol, which will help us in enhancing flavors and also in preserving our particular food. Okay, so that is done with food processing, and more will be talking surely when we are under now product development itself. Here we're only looking at how we are doing the processing. Then nutrition considerations, we'll be looking at nutrient retention, we'll be looking at nutrient enhancement and challenges in food processing, right? Yeah. So in nutrient retention in food processing, we are looking at nutrient retention refers to preserving of essential nutrients during food processing. Okay, how are you going to preserve these essential nutrients? Because like I told you earlier on, that now the masses are aware of the nutrients that are in particular foods, and we also talked of quacks and fallacies whereby you should not deceive the market that you have a particular nutrient in your food stuff or in your product that you don't really have. So how can we be able to retain these nutrients so that we can able to convince the masses that we have the nutrients in the food and they are available in real time? So factors affecting retention, we'll look at the temperature at which you're cooking. Okay, the temperature at which you're cooking, some nutrients can be destabilized. Okay, yeah, by temperature and vaporized, some of them. So once these nutrients are vaporized, or some can be disintegrated. Yeah, yeah. So once these are disintegrated by temperature, then you could also opt for better methods of having the same product but at low temperatures so as to retain these nutrients. Cooking time, like I had explained earlier, some nutrients could also be lost due to cooking time and also cooking methods. Okay, yeah. For instance, there are very many conservative methods of cooking whereby we are looking at steaming being one of the conservative methods of cooking that we are trapping. Okay, most of the the nutrients into the covers that we are trying to preserve as much as possible, the nutrients from escaping. Okay, steaming is a good method of cooking. Then we are also looking at shallow. I think it is called. I think it's called. It's not called shallow frying, but in a way where we cook cabbage for very, very little periods of time. Okay, yeah. So and also these are relative to the different foods. Okay, yeah, they are relative to the different foods, because if we use a different cooking method for food, we'll end up seeing that that food won't be cooked, and will actually just increase the cooking time. And whereby we said also cooking time is a factor that affects the retention of nutrients in a particular food. Then also look at storage conditions. Some storage conditions are also, like we had said, if foods are stored badly, then it will lead to microbial growth. Also, these microbes grow because of the nutrients that are in those particular foods. And once these microbes grow, then the nutrients will be depleted as the microbes are growing. Then, even if, though for safety concerns, we may not be eating that particular food, but if the microbes have taken some of the nutrients, then the nutrients will be reached. And also we look at storage conditions. Some nutrients are light sensitive. Okay, yeah. So they could be acted on by light. So know which particular food you're working with and which particular nutrients are in that food, so they could not be damaged by light or by oxygen, etc., by whatever that destroys those particular nutrients. Sorry. Okay, we are done with the nutrient retention. Then let's look at these preservation techniques. We look at blanching. Blanching is cooking for a very little period of time. Okay, yeah. We tend to believe that once you're blanching these foods, you're killing the microbes. Okay, and some people have said that with blanching, you're exposing the food to very high heats for little periods of time. Okay, but we believe that at exposing the foods to very little for little times at high heat, it will help us denature the microbes that are growing, or the bacteria that are in the particular food. Also, we have steaming, which is also introduction of this is a wet cooking method, whereby we are trying as much as possible to use steam to cook some of these foods. Okay, so that now at least the food is not immersed totally into the water, but we are using the steam to cook the food. Here in Uganda, mostly what we have is steamed matoke. With steamed matoke, and also people would say that it tastes better compared to matoke that is just boiled in the water itself. All right. Then also with microwaving, however much people have talked of concerns with cancer, whereby the rays, some of them remain in the foods and then they are ingested. But seriously, we can agree that when microwaving, we believe that these foods retain their nutrients more compared to these foods that are cooked out here. Because when a food is microwaved, we don't have runoffs in terms of the cooking water, though we would have steam, but that is very minimum. And also, it is always the cooking time is really monitored with advanced microwaves we have, that at that period that you said, if our food is going to cook for 15 minutes, it will be for 15 minutes. It's not like these other cooking methods, maybe with our cooking on the 3-stone jiko, when you have to first dip a fork into the food stuff to know if the food is ready or not. And also freezing could also help us in retaining the particular nutrients, etc., if it hampers microbial growth. And we are saying maintaining nutrient content enhances the nutritional quality of the processed foods. This we have talked of, that quality in foods, we will look at the texture, we will look at the color, but most especially we will look at the nutritive value or the nutrient quality of the food. Okay, the more nutrients your food has, we will term that as nutritional quality, ideally. All right, so let's look at nutrient enhancement in processed foods. We were trying to look at how we would have these foods retain their nutrients, but now let's look at how you could also be adding adding nutrients to these particular foods if they are being processed. So here we'll say that nutrient enhancement involves adding or fortifying foods with essential nutrients. Okay, and we are saying fortification examples include adding vitamins, adding minerals and nutrients like folic acid to cereals. Okay, we have orange flesh sweet potatoes here in Uganda. The orange flesh sweet potatoes, we are saying they've been enriched with vitamin A, and then we have iron-rich beans and fortified rich beans that have been fortified with iron, etc. Yeah, and also we have iodine in salt. Okay, the salt that is originally mined has few traces of iodine, but then when fortified with iodine, we will have to prevent some of the deficiencies or problems that could arise by deficiencies in iodine. For example, cretinism. Then we have issues with goiter, etc. So enrichment examples, we are looking at adding back nutrients lost during processing, such as adding iron to refined grains. The husks may contain this iron, but then once they are removed from that particular foodstuff, then the person or the person who is processing or the manufacturer is trying as much as possible to replenish what has been lost, okay, in the particular food through the waste, etc. And also here, friends, I will have to tell you that locally what we do in trying to enhance the nutrients, we do not pour away water. For example, the stock that someone will use to cook meat, it will be the same soup they will use to prepare the vegetable, could be the same soup they will use to prepare the carbohydrate or the matoke or the cassava or the potatoes, etc. Yeah. So that is a form of also conserving these nutrients so that they are not depleted or washed away. Also, we are looking at health impact of nutrient-enhanced foods helps address nutrient deficiencies in populations. These have been proven as good interventions in areas whereby we start to understand that there is a deficiency of a particular vitamin or a particular mineral. So the fortification or the nutrient enhancement of these foods helps the government or the organizations in charge of health of those individuals to curb the situations that could be arising due to that lack of nutrient causing the deficiencies as they may arise. Also, we are looking at now what are the challenges in nutritional aspects of food processing. Nutrient loss processing methods like deep frying can lead to significant nutrient loss. When deep frying, we talked of it as immersing the particular food in that cooking oil. Okay, yeah. Once we immerse that particular food in cooking oil, some nutrients leach into the cooking oil, thereby leading to a loss. Yet still the deep frying method is always good because it will help us cook a food faster compared to other methods of cooking. Then also we are looking at over processing or excessive processing, which will disintegrate or which will degrade the nutritional value of foods. However, the Africans who are part of all of us as one, in most cases we have now we want highly processed foods. If it is the flour, we want that flour that is very white, okay, that doesn't have any of those, what for us we call them impurities, but they're actually not even impurities. But then we want that highly refined flour, we want that fine flour compared to the rough one. So this excessive processing will remove the whole husk completely, and it will also take some nutrient with it, whereby the nutritionists have been advising people to take whole grain that has a lot of nutrients still embedded, but however our masses have still opted to take the highly refined, and this highly refined has brought issues since it is always high in calorie and low in most of the other vital nutrients. And what happens then? We get the obesities and also other nutrient deficiencies that could come in handy to being detrimental in society. Additives and preservatives, and we are saying this can affect the nutritional qualities of food. Additives, for example, sugar. There is now no food that people are not adding sugar to. Okay, they're adding syrups to almost each and everything, and these syrups in the end will lead to affecting the nutritional quality of some of these foodstuffs. Okay, some of them have nutrient and nutrient interactions, things that consumers may not able see, and also the manufacturer may not able see. But since there is not a lot of care that is taken into consideration when formulating these particular mixes or mixtures, we find that the nutritional quality of the foods will reduce because someone wanted to put preservatives or additives such as food color, and we'll look at these also in dietetic cookery. Preservatives could also be good, that they are going to increase the shelf life of a particular commodity, but in the end, they're detrimental in affecting the nutritional quality of the food. Also, consumers lack awareness and about the nutrient considerations in processed food. Okay, yeah. So people do not know that the more the food is processed, the more it is losing its nutrients. And the food manufacturers or the food product manufacturers don't relay this information to the individual. They cannot tell you that we made this cookie out of whole grain or whole wheat. Okay, they won't tell you that. At the end of the day, they just want to sell to you the donut. They just want to sell to you the bread. Some of them even will deceive you. Okay, yeah, we've been doing this, but actually, if you do your research well, they have not been doing it. And the consumers themselves really don't know the difference of these things. And it is going to be a role of the people who are in the public health sector to inform the masses of these particular things so that they are well aware of these